Hey listeners, it's Laura. I wanted to make you aware that part of the audio, specifically Carl and I, is a little muffled due to a technical difficulty. But we didn't want you to miss this valuable insight from Stacy Badon concerning autism, education, and religion. We hope you power through and soak up as much great information as you can from our amazing guest. Welcome to the Desert Sanctuary with Carl and Laura Forehand.
Often when we have doubts about religion or simply want to ask questions, it can feel like we are wandering out into the desert.
We would like to invite you to join our sanctuary, the Desert Sanctuary.
We've tried to pick guests that would resonate with and challenge us and our fellow seekers here in the desert.
We believe that a key to the journey is to keep asking good questions, and we believe that all stories are sacred.
Our hope is that you will find life and healing for your body and mind, and that you will be able to be where you are and be who you are.
And now, here is our show.
Hi, welcome to the Desert Sanctuary Podcast. I'm Laura Forehand. I'm here with Carl Forehand, and we are actually joined by a special guest today, Stacy Badon. Okay, I want to make sure I say your name right. And Stacy and I have never met in person, but we have met through the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint. We've done at least one book study together that I remember you being in, and then also we are currently in an article study which centers around schools, but you had mentioned something about religion just in some of your shares. And It just really got me intrigued. And so I, literally earlier this week on Monday, which, by the time this comes out, but literally 4 days ago, I had just messaged you and said, would you be willing to be on the podcast? And you are so gracious to join us here tonight. And so welcome to the podcast. We're grateful that you're
so excited. I actually shared with one of my clients / friends, and I said, oh my gosh, they said, I know this is a big ask. And I'm like, they just don't know me. You're asking me to talk about something that I'm passionate about? Oh my gosh.
I love it. I love it.
I was the one in detention for talking on a regular basis. Yes.
Before Laura kicks us off, just kind of an explanation that we might not have given you before. Desert Sanctuary, we kind of see ourselves as setting kind of out on the edge of Christianity. Just like we imagine ourselves as, Lucy and the Peanuts, where she has her little booth out there. And we're not sitting in that booth to talk people out of Christianity or to get them in. We are sitting out there having conversations with people about sometimes their frustrations with a religion, sometimes their trauma from religion, and sometimes maybe the things we're going to talk about, how we don't always mesh together and so on. But we want to hear your stories. We think stories are sacred. So we want to hear your story.
So what I'd love to do is just add a little bit to Laura and I's connection in terms of the book study and the article. And one of the things I love about having those virtual tables to sit at is we get to meet people we would not be able to meet otherwise and have important discussions, because that is the only way to shift towards a healthy community environment, is to have discussions. I'm an educator. I started as a speech therapist, and children have always been something that was important to me. Like, I was the babysitter, right? I was the one that was always watching the kids at Mardi Gras and the picnic. I'm the one making sure their, juice wasn't spilled. I mean, I was just that mama, right, for the kids. And so I've been very fortunate to be able to do what I do. But one of the things that's very frustrating is the behavior component. And then in these discussions that we're having in the book study and just sitting at tables, and just with my own experience, I started to I think I recognized, but I never made the connection so strongly, right? And I was actually talking to someone earlier, and I said, it's like religion is the first form of ABA. You do this, you go to heaven, you do this, you go to hell, and that's it. There's nothing else. And they withhold your joy, and you have to earn it. And she was like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, that's how I feel, right? Because that does not feel right to me. And I remember, Carl, in terms of story, I have several layers to my story and I love to tell stories. But I remember going home to my mother, and it had to be in junior high when I think about the house that I was at. And I went home to my mom and I said, do people have to really suffer to go to heaven? And she said, why did you say that? And I said, because everybody that I know who goes to church every Sunday they don't have food and they're really struggling and I don't understand. And she sat down and talked to me and explained that was not the case, right? And so that is one of the moments where I remember thinking about that, like, that's not right. like that's not right. I didn't know why. I was too young to articulate and make sense of it. But Carl, when I was raised, I was raised Catholic. I grew up in South Louisiana. My mother was raised, I think, Baptist, and Southern Baptist. My grandma, the usher, the whole deal, right? Southern Louisiana church, and my mother married a Catholic. So when you marry a Catholic in the South, you got to become Catholic and raise your kids Catholic, right? So my mother took us to church like every Sunday, put us in like everything you're supposed to do. My dad was done with church when he became an adult. He was like, I am out of here. Peace out. Did that when I was a kid and I had to. And he never really went to mass when we went to mass. But my mother went diligently. She took the courses. She did everything she was supposed to do. And then when it was time for her to, and I asked her, why do you need to become Catholic? We can go to church and you don't. And she said to me, because I don't want to, I want to be able to take communion, and I don't want to die and not have to go through a church, right? And these are my children and this is my family and this is, whatever. And I said, okay, fine. But the church told my mother, and it's like a visceral reaction because I could not believe it. At like age 9, they told her she could not become Catholic and get communion unless her and my dad got married again in the church. And I was like, I am done, because that is illogical to me. And I literally went to the priest and I said, I want my name off the list. And he's like, what list? I want to be off the Catholic list. That's what I kept saying, off the list. I don't want to be on the list. And he was like, well, there is no list. And I said, well, you send a letter to God and tell him to take me off the list because I don't want to be on the Catholic list. He was like, the Catholic list. So then I went, and because, it's the neighborhood. Back in the day, you could walk to the church and everybody, your parents didn't have to drive you. Yeah. You could ride your bike. So because I felt like my mom did everything she was supposed to do, and she didn't have to do that, right? She had a church with her mother. And you guys just rejected her. Like, I don't know what kind of God that is, but I don't want to have anything to do with that, right? But that was the last one, and it never went back. However, there was a buildup, Carl. It's a buildup. So on a Saturday, the yellow bus would pick us up and bring us to catechism, and the mean nun would tell us these things, right? And the nun was telling me these things that never made sense, and I was always questioning things. And then she said, if you chew gum, you are going to hell. And I said, that is so stupid. And she said, get out and don't let her on the yellow bus anymore. And I said, I didn't want to come here anyway on a Saturday morning. I was not the quiet child. So then there was one other incident. This is like my little like Catholic, like, didn't make sense to me as a child. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like, you have to, I'm all about God and faith, but you're not making any sense. Like, my brain is not making these connections. And it didn't seem nice. It just seemed mean. It just seemed mean, right? And so then, you do, in the catechism, and they're prepping you for the first communion. And first communion, and you have to talk to the priest and tell your sin. And I'm like, so I'm 7. I don't really know what I've done at 7.
Right.
And then the nun was like, you have sinned. I'm like, okay, let me just make up a story to tell the priest because my parents are here. I'm in this white dress and we all got to go to this thing. Because back then we did First Communion really early, like I want to say like age 6.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. And then we had to go to confession, like it's like so ludicrous. And I said to the priest, I don't understand why I have to talk to you. Why can't I just talk directly to God? And he said, well, I'm, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, I don't really understand. Like, I can pray to and talk to God. Like, I don't have to tell you my sins. And I didn't really have any at 7 that I could think of, right? I'm not
Right.
saying I didn't do anything. I'm saying I couldn't really think of anything
Right.
bad that I had done at 7. I mean, the fact that a religion thinks you're born a sinner and babies have to be, and if they die, they're going to go to hell. And I'm like, so you're telling, like, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense, right? And so that's when I started to question things, and that's when I started to push back. However, on the flip side, I have my wonderful grandma, my maternal grandmother, who knows, I mean, she was, born, Jim Crow, civil rights, like, the whole gamut, right? Wasn't allowed to learn how to read or go to school. She learned how to read watching the little white girl that she had to take care of reading. That's how she learned to read. And my grandma was an avid reader. My parents were avid readers, but my grandma knew the Bible. But you know what? She never quoted it at you. She never threw it at you. She never talked down to you. And she never said anything about you going to hell. Never. She never did that. My grandma, I will say, I even gave her flowers. They say give them their flowers before they dead. I drove home from college and went to her house and I said, Grandma, I'm bringing you flowers and a pound cake because they say give you your flowers before you're going to die. And she's like, am I going to die? No, you're not dying. I said, but I want you to know you were so impactful in teaching me how to live as a Christian at the time. That was a good word. Right now it's kind of mucky, but my idea of being a Christian in terms of treating people the way you should treat people, with respect and accepting people for who they are, just by your actions, right? It doesn't have to be a big deal. And my grandma was like that until the day she died at age 94, and she had her whole mind and her wits about her. I mean, I was with her when she passed away, which was one of my favorite moments in life, just to be there with her. I mean, she lived a good life. 94 is a long time. That's a long time to live. So I have this person in my life, right, who is living and praying and praising God, and I'm seeing this, and then I have these other people who are teaching me and telling me, and I'm like that, like there's a, like, what am I going to do, right?
Look like
Yeah. Yeah, what am I going to do? Because, I'm supposed to go to church on Sunday, right? We're supposed to go, everyone in New Orleans, like it's just a Catholic. It's our culture as well as a religion, I think. So being a young child, I had to do what I was told until I could not, or just refused, which that was not uncommon for me, but, with respect to, doing what my parents told me to do. So that's kind of like the start, and I'll pause there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you said something that church was like the first ABA. I may not be quoting you. Can you explain what ABA is for our
Yes,
listeners
yes,
that
yes.
may not know? Because I don't know that we've ever discussed that on this podcast.
So that stemmed off of the book study in the article in talking about behaviorism. And so ABA is applied behavior analysis, and it's the therapy that's used sort of to, you want to get someone to do something. So you reinforce when they do something good, and then you withhold when they don't do what you want them to do, right? Reinforcements and consequences are part of life, right? But these are structured, targeted, harmful things that are done. And there's a lot of controversy, but I work in the field of working with children who have disabilities, and I work with children who have communication differences. And so when you have something withheld from you because you cannot, because of your disability, that is not nice. That's not nice.
Okay.
And so,
Behaviorism comes from B.F. Skinner, which
yes,
comes from Pavlov.
yes,
And it's all
yeah.
it's either behaviorism or behavioralism, and I always get it wrong. But it's building out of that, and whether we know it or not, we've been following it for a long time,
Long time.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so my basic connection is it's the same thing because that's what they do in ABA. So for example, in ABA, let's say a child wants their iPad, right, to play with. And what an ABA therapist may not recognize is that is their communication device, or that is what they need to stim. That is what they need to have their sensory regulation. And so when you withhold it and make them earn it, like we don't make people earn something they need, right? Like we don't make our children earn food. Now, people who do that are what we call abusive parents, right? We take those children away. But it's legalized in therapy, right? And I'm not saying everyone's mean, but the techniques are not real kind for people who have disabilities. Because if you could do something, you would do it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
help us with that, because I believe that, and I'm starting to understand it, but why don't you behave? I don't understand why you don't behave.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they don't want to. You said just now, it's because they can't.
Mm-hmm. At that very moment. Exactly.
Can you
And
dig
so
down on that just a little bit more?
exactly. And that even ties into, if you think of old school religion, right, where a child does something and they're pouring milk in a cup and then they spill it and there's a punishment, right, because you made a mess, right? Like that whole thing about, cleanliness is next to godliness that somebody made up because whatever. And so the concept is you all have children, right? You had babies, infants. Think of when you had newborn babies. I know it was a long time ago, but remember just how tired and disoriented you were, right? Remember the things that you either didn't pick up off the floor that you normally would. Remember the things you might have forgotten because of sleep deprivation. So we should not hold it against you because you forgot to call in for your prescription 2 weeks after you had a newborn, because you always did it before, right? Like, so this time I didn't, right? However, with children who have either executive functioning difficulties, or they have communication differences, or autistic children who are trying to regulate themselves in a sensory environment, specifically the church, that can be very overwhelming, then it is very difficult to perform a task that someone wants you to do when you are trying to regulate your sensory system. So think of it if you're in church and let's say the AC's out and you're sweating and it's hot, right? And you're trying to like, hang in there, but you're so distracted with the fact that you're hot and you're like, oh my gosh, are we almost done? You don't get the message. You don't get the message, right? So you can't process information. You can't, answer someone if your system is not regulated and integrated and your brain is getting the messages in a timely manner. You just can't.
And they may have come to school dysregulated. They may have had a lot of trouble at home.
Yes.
All those
Or
things.
I think about church, and with Carl being a pastor, and having small children at the time. When people saw us one way at church, but we were highly dysregulated at home, right, or on the way to church.
Yeah.
Just because nobody's getting ready on time or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely.
Laura, are you all familiar with the Autistic pastor?
No.
So his name is Lamar Hardwick. I will send you the link. I just thought about it. Unfortunately, we just lost Lamar to that ugly C thing that just keeps nagging all of us and our family members. But he put up a good fight for 7 years, and he's written 3 wonderful books on disability in the church. His mission was disability and churches needing to be more accepting. So I will definitely share that with you. I'm very, I thank thank the moon and the stars and God and everything above that he was able to write these 3 books during that journey of trying to stay here for his family. But he was very impactful in bringing up issues in the church for children with disabilities, because a lot of my parents, don't get to go to church because of their autistic child. And even so for example, when I do parent coaching and a parent has a new diagnosis and their child is age 3, and I say, okay, so what is something that is really frustrating and you want to work on? What's one thing that's important to you? My parents who are maybe Muslim or from a Baptist or something, not Baptist. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it just because I want to. But it is like like there's rituals, like you have to like do all of these things and go to the mosque and be quiet. And their goal is, I want my child to be able to go to the mosque with me. And I just tell them straight up, that's not happening. That's not happening. You cannot expect a 3-year-old to sit quietly in the mosque while you're praying. You cannot expect a dysregulated 3-year-old autistic kid to be able to hold it together. So you have to make a choice, get someone to babysit, or don't go to the mosque, or find another way to pray, because that is not a goal that can be met. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just, you can't go on the rides on Disney World unless you're so tall because it's dangerous. Like, it's just the way it is, right? So, and the mosque I don't think the mosque needs to change their religion I believe in accommodating, but like there are just some places children can go and shouldn't go. I mean, it's just, if they're not ready. I mean, we live in a time where we're out and about a lot, and children are forced to go a lot of places that are not kid friendly. Children don't want to sit in a restaurant for 2 hours and eat food. That's not enjoyable for a child. That's why we have to entertain them, because that's not a fun thing for them. But we have a culture that does that because we don't sit at home and eat at the dinner table like we used to, right? So that's where that sort of behaviorism and ableism in the church and all of that comes into play, because it's almost like parents are shamed because their child with a disability can't sit still in church, right? And I'm thinking, I thought this was a church. Like, I thought this was where God was, and we're supposed to be accepting.
Everybody's welcome.
Yes. And then my other pushback is my families who are very avid churchgoers and very involved in their community, and they need maybe an AAC device for their child to communicate. And my recommendation is, you are so active in your church, you need to let that community know. I bet everybody would pull together, and it doesn't take a lot if everybody pulls together. They said, oh, churches don't do that anymore. Oh, well, when I grew up, the churches used to bring food to Miss Millie when she was sick. I don't know what's going on now, but that's what we used to do. Because I remember going with my grandma begrudgingly, because nobody wanted to be the grandchild picked to go with the grandma to visit the sick people. But lesson learned, teachable moment. I appreciate it as an adult. So it's just so mucky, and it shouldn't be mucky. And I think the capitalism around megachurches has not helped.
Right. It's a business. And
Yeah.
we've used some terms quite a few times, and I want to make sure everybody understands them. Number one, just real simply, autism. I was going to say, Laura wouldn't let me say it, but why it's not caused by Tylenol. And why is it frustrating, and why is it hard, and what's hard about it, and those kind of things. Also, ableism is a fairly new term to me. So can you explain those? Can you define those for people like us and people that listen and so on that may not be real familiar with?
And I know that Laura had brought up the ableism as well in the email. And so, Carl, ableism is kind of a new term for a lot of us, right? It's not a term that everyone knows, because if you're not in a circle and you hear it, you don't know it, right? I learned a new word yesterday that I've never heard in my life. So it is new, and it's a good new, right?
Or not? Is it a cuss word?
No, it's not a cuss word. Not a cuss word, but it feels like a cuss word when people do it. So ableism is kind of like the concept of the teacher telling the mom of the autistic child, oh, we're going on a field trip, but he's going to stay behind because we don't think it's going to be good for him. He's going to like it, right? It's assuming the disabled person can. It's sort of like downplaying. And one of the other things is, another thing that we see very commonly is people that sort of treat the disabled like they're children, right? Not expecting them to be adults when they're adults, right? Like people with disabilities. And this is funny story. I was actually just in a parent coaching training session last night with my mom, who has a kiddo with a dual diagnosis. He's autistic and Down syndrome. And so we were talking about puberty coming up, and I said to her, I said, just because he has this and this, he's going to be a man one day, and he's going to want to be a man and do what men do, right? Because disabled individuals enjoy doing things that adults do, like everyone else: drinking a beer, having sex, kissing, dating, whatever. Or some of them don't. We can all have the option to opt out or opt in. And so, to hear that, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, yes. Just because someone is disabled doesn't mean they're not an adult. They know they're an adult. In fact, in my experience, the Down syndrome population is probably the population that gets most frustrated with people thinking that they're children. They're very aware that they're adults. They want to do adult things without their parents. They want to go out to the club and whatever it is that the other kids are doing. There was a really good show on that demonstrated that a few years back, but people don't think about that. And so that's kind of an ableistic perspective, right? Not really sort of feeling like they are able because they can. And just in terms of just brief in regards to autism, autism is not a behavior disorder. I always start with that, because it's not a behavior disorder. It is simply it's misconceived as a behavior disorder, or it is diagnosed based on behavior seen, but that is because the autistic individual is responding to the sensory environment, or they are having difficulty, for whatever underlying reasons, communicating efficiently. And so, it's not a one sort of black and white, but it is a neurological difference. And the way I can explain it the simplest is, we have 8 sensory systems, not 5. And I am a non-autistic individual. So I process information, my brain takes it in, I see the lighting in this room, the temperature, things in the background, and I process it and I respond, right? If I was hot, then I would take this, my response would be to take this off. So I would respond to my environment. However, an autistic individual is taking in the same information, but with not so much, you can say in intensity, but it's like much more detail. Like maybe hearing the flickering of the lights, right? Or hearing the buzz of the air conditioner in the background. And so that has to be processed and filtered and processed and filtered. And I think of it as, when we see kids have like a meltdown shutdown, it's like a web page that just got overloaded because everybody wanted to buy the product.
Right. Yeah.
And so for autistic individuals, their perceived behaviors, and I'm using that because we're talking sort of about behavior, it really depends on the environment. So the kids in Ghana, Africa, that I volunteered with, the autism presents differently in terms of less meltdowns, because there's so much more outdoor time. There's so much more free space. There's not a lot of rush like in America. The kids in Guatemala, much more accepting. There's no standards of everybody has to do this. So culture's impact, in fact, that's my, I keep saying, I just need a philanthropist to sit next to me on a plane and give me money because I want to write a book about cultural impact on autism. That's all I want to do before I die. That's it. But because it does. I work with families around the globe. I have volunteered in different countries. I've worked with different religions, and it is an impact. It's really interesting because some of the Southeast religions are so much more embracing of autism and disabilities than Western Christianity. Yeah,
I was going to
really
ask you,
interesting.
how do you see ableism presenting itself, or do you see it presenting itself within the American, let's say the American church? So, like, how do you see that in the
It is in, they won't let them get baptized
what?
because they can't say the words. Yeah. They won't let them take communion because they're flapping, they're not putting their hands like you're supposed to put them. That's it right there.
So
Discrimination.
It's a Catholic church.
No, it's a mixture. It's just a mixture. Yeah. But I would say more Catholic Church with communion for sure. But I have a lot of families in Texas that are Baptists, and they've changed churches because I've said to them, listen, I understand you may like your church, but I'm going to tell you right now, if your pastor is not letting your child come and join the other kids, you need to find another church. That is not what church is supposed to be. That's supposed to be your community and your safe space. I'm sorry.
Probably segregate them, right? In the Baptist church, put them in their own class.
Yeah. And I don't have a problem with kids going to a certain class or if children need a sensory space, right? I don't have a problem with that. My thing is things need to be available and options need to be there, and parents and the autistic individual can choose what they want. For example, my autistic friend who is an adult who is Jewish and attends their services, she has a certain space that she sits because she does not want to get sensory overload. She also goes swimming before she goes so that she knows she doesn't get dysregulated. So autistic individuals, when they learn and understand their autistic identity and their sensory system, they're able to do the things they want to do with strategies in place for whatever they need. But you have to have the environment be willing to do that, right? For example, in Africa, one of the biggest dilemmas that I had to really talk to, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many nights and how much beer I had to sit up drinking to African men in Ghana to convince them to let the children wear headphones in the loud church because the church is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
Hours and hours.
Right. So you said, create environments. We've often said that the church doesn't have room for our grief, right? Because it takes time. We might have to just stop the presentation and be with each other and listen to stories and take some time. But it doesn't have time for that. It's an organization. It's a production, and
got to keep the train running.
And and they just don't seem to have time for that. The brochure says we care about everybody and we love
everybody's welcome.
But if it's an organization, then it has to be trained to understand these kind of things, right? And my thing is my daughter has determined I'm probably on the spectrum myself, but that doesn't mean I understand it. I'm still learning and trying desperately to understand. But it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent also, right?
Oh my gosh.
They're probably, more so, right? And, the Tylenol thing all came about because of the Mormons. And I always say, I can't think of anybody that's more autistic than Mormons. It's just a generality and
No, it is a funny joke, yes.
I'm being Carl, But
no, it is. It's like everyone's the same. They do the same thing. It's like the routine. Yeah. Yep.
And so that plays into an autistic, someone on the spectrum. But probably because they don't get tested, they don't show statistics as much of being in that category. But
exactly.
I can say as a former pastor, I can validate what you're saying, that takes a lot of time, and we're not sure if we want to do it. We might as well just categorize them as something they're really not, and exclude them from participating fully in the things that we consider important in our community. And community is important.
Yes, it is.
That all through this thing, we need connection, and autistic people also need connection,
Absolutely.
right?
And community is the key. Like you just said, we need community. So you actually would not have to stop the show if you had community in your church. If everyone understood why Bobby's flapping, if everyone understood Susie might need her headphones, if everyone understood Sarah might need to go in the back and spin, everyone would be helpful and fine with it, and everyone would just be okay, and it wouldn't be an issue. Like that, I keep saying that. I'm like, if people know why, if you tell them what they can do, and everybody cooperates and everybody has buy-in, which you should in a church, then it can be done. You don't have to stop a production. I say all the time, my families that, want to go on vacation, I'm like, you can go on vacation. You just have to prep for it. But you can go. You may have to do some extra things, but you can still go. And they go and they understand their child's sensory. And so they go and they have a great time and there's no meltdowns. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't think we could go. Yes, you can go. But you have to know and understand what you can do to support the individual so that you don't have behavior problems, right? Because that seems to be so, important for me. Children sitting still is so critical in this world. It just drives me crazy. I'm like, children are supposed to be running around playing.
This
Right.
is just because we're trying to train factory workers and, it's assembly line. And
Yes.
we kind of, I think we kind of value compliance over anything else. So
I know.
90% of the class complies, and we count that as a win. They may be suppressing things, they may be totally miserable, they may not be learning anything, but as long as they comply, then I'm out to treat them better.
Yep.
And before I forget, can you explain what STEM and STEMming?
Stemming.
I've heard Laura talk about that. I don't understand that.
Of course. So stemming, and I like to say the spelling because people hear it one way. It's STIM. So a stem is, most people recognize the hand flapping, right? It's a term that people have seen and recognize and associate with autism, but that's not the only stem, right?
Right.
Stemming can be something simple, and all of us have a stem. Like everyone's stem to regulate, right?
Yeah.
It's just that an autistic individual may need a level of intensity stem because the environment, it's very overwhelming, or it's a stem that maybe is not a common stem according to the norm, right? That somebody made a list of and we just all agreed to. I don't really know if we agreed to it, but somebody made a list and everybody said, okay. So it has different purposes. Sometimes it's to express joy. Sometimes it is to sensory process, to regulate. For example, one of my students today, he has a particular stem that he does when he's processing to come up with a verbal answer. And so I know it. And so he does it and he goes into it and I just wait and then he gives me the answer. If he were in a traditional classroom setting, he would be told, stop, sit down, stop. Yes. But I know it helps him to process information so that he can respond and it's all good. And then I just get this wonderful interaction with this kiddo. So it's just about, I don't even like to use the word patience. Like I know I have a lot of patience, but I really hate when people say, I shouldn't say hate. I don't appreciate when someone says to me, oh, you have a lot of patience. I'm like, it's really not about my patience. It's really just respecting another human being. It's really that simple.
Yeah.
Like it's really that simple. When we meet someone and we talk to them and they say, oh, I'm hard of hearing in this ear, please talk to this side. We all make an adjustment. Why can't we make an adjustment for an autistic child?
I kind of wanted to reinforce what you said about, in the church, if people, if we just make people aware, right, of what this child,
Educate.
what these children need, right, educate. So not last year, but the year before, I had a student with autism. She was able to speak a couple words, but for the most part, she was not able to articulate, long sentences or have a dialogue like we're having here. However, and whenever she would come into my classroom, which was often because I wanted her in there, I wanted her to be part of our community. She would come in and she would get a ruler out of my drawer and she would walk back and forth in my classroom and she would hit her hand with the, and she would sometimes make,
Like an auditory stem.
thank you, an auditory sound. I was trying to find the right words there, so thank you for that. Make an auditory sound, sometimes not. But I cannot begin to tell you how much she was part of our community. And the students just, I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
it just wasn't a big deal. It
Yeah. It's just actual inclusion.
And the thing that was so beautiful about that is that we were able then to talk about we all need, like you were saying, we all have, I mean, I can sit here and bounce my leg or click my pen or, you know, we all have those. And it's so interesting to me, like even with these book studies and things that we've done, how as adults we forget that. We forget that it was hard for us to sit as a child. That when we were hot, we were uncomfortable. Or when we were cold, we were uncomfortable. You know, what is that? That's a huge question. I'm just putting out.
You know, Laura, I think we forget because we're bombarded with like mortgage, due dates, retirement. I mean, like our brain is so like capitalism is just taking over and we can't even remember the childhood. I mean, that's
You're right.
how can I remember that? But I do in trainings, I do use examples from my childhood and remembering things that, like, I remember things that I didn't like that my teacher did. Now, full disclosure, I had a lot of detention. I got put out a lot of stuff because I just am not compliant. I'm just not a compliant. I mean, I'm just not compliant. So
You're curious.
yes, I am very curious. I question a lot. But I mean, I wasn't a horrible student, but I definitely did not keep still. But I will say this: I went to school and we had recess twice a day. We had recess in the morning. We had recess after lunch. We had PE every day. We had music every day. So we didn't have to sit like they have to sit now. It's very different. I was a talker. So let me tell you about compliance. If somebody did this now, people would probably have a fit. I was in first grade and I always had something to say. So my teacher could not get me to stop talking, right? Like, and I'm sure she's not alive, but I just want to say I still have not stopped talking, and I actually do it for a living. I became a speech therapist. So she would go to the chalkboard and she would put a circle in the chalkboard, and I would have to sit with my nose in the circle, and that was the only.
Oh no!
I've been in the circle and sit on the wall and sit in the corner, right?
No, I will say, I do not remember that being a horrible experience because clearly I laugh about it. I just remember knowing me, I probably made up stories in my head while I was standing there.
Did you keep talking while your nose was on there?
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. My poor teachers.
But also then that goes back to kind of what Carl said about compliance, because then we look at those quiet children and we think, oh, they're such great students. Or if we're talking about churches, oh, those your kids are so well behaved. Maybe they're scared to death.
They are also prime picking for victim. Prime picking. Teaching children to comply, even though they're uncomfortable, is teaching them that it's okay for people to harm you and you're uncomfortable.
Wow, that's a good point.
And it's said that women will marry a controlling husband and so on. I think that's what you're alluding to also.
Yes. And the church teaches that oppression. I mean, like the rules are written to oppress women. I asked somebody, I said, can you find me something in the Bible that oppresses men? Just one. I just want one. Just one thing men have to do. I haven't seen one. What oppresses men? Where are the men oppression?
Right. Yeah.
Because they wrote the book to make sure that we stay in our place. I mean, it's clearly it's obvious. But anyway,
automatically suffering. They're suffering by being a man, right?
Well, we've had lots of victims of church sexual abuse on this podcast, so you are not. I mean, we're covering the gamut here.
I totally get it. Yes, and it's really, really so sad when you peel apart how people use the church for their perversion and taking advantage of children. I mean, and it is so systematically organized and repeated generation after generation. I mean, it's it just gives you a visceral reaction to know that there's so many people that agree to it, right? Like that's the part that overwhelms me. And I remember watching, I don't know if you know that show Intervention that used to be on, and
Yeah, yeah.
the majority of the people that were hooked on drugs were victims of sexual assault as children, and it was always someone that was a family member or something, but they were never upset as much with the person who did it as they were at the people who just allowed it to continue to happen, knowing it was happening.
Yeah. We have, whether we specifically call it demons and try to cast out demons, or whatever your process is, right, in your institution that you're associated with, and even if that's school, or detention and all those kind of things.
Carl, now I want to tell you my story. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
My point is only that we're demonizing instead of talking and working with and spending time with. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I have an amazing, wonderful best friend of 32 years. Like she is just my yin yang. Like she is just my bestie. So she has a different relationship with the Bible and religion than I do, right? Not drastic, but different. It's based off of a circumstance that happened, and she was driven. And I knew it was going to be some contention, and we worked through it. However, the biggest issue that kind of caused the ruckus and we needed to take a pause was the stuff going on in the States. And she would repeatedly say, "Oh my gosh, that's the devil. They're just the devil." And I said, "Stop saying that. Stop saying that. Because every time you say that, you give humans an excuse to not be accountable for their goddamn actions." I said, "Stop saying someone did something because the devil made them do it. Fucking free choice. Like, God damn it. Now, whether they had a pact with the devil, they want to be with the devil, I don't know and I don't care. Right. But you cannot keep blaming, whether it's God did it and made it, or like God made you have the home run. Like, seriously, and I'm not against God and prayer. I'm just like, come on now. Like, I really don't think. But that was because I was so frustrated with the idea that we cannot accept the fact that some people are just not nice. They're just not nice. And that is not a devil making them that way. I'm not saying that I don't believe in spirits and all of that. I am saying it is an excuse for people not to be made accountable. And it is used so often in the church to excuse behaviors. That whole thing with that counting 18 family and, them hiding it in the church and, we prayed it in God. I'm like, that is bullshit. You literally made him not have to be accountable for his behaviors. That's what you did. Right. And that is my problem with all of that, right? Because in the end, everybody has a choice. Now, there's a consequence with that choice, but you can still pick, right? You can still pick. And I'm not saying there's not mental health issues. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about people who do things that purposefully are harmful to others for their own whatever they're doing it for, right? I'm not taking away their accountability. Don't tell me. And so that became a discussion that was ongoing. And I was like, I don't like arguing with my friend about this because it's not that significant and important in our daily life. Like, it's really not. We don't have to agree on it. And so I just took like a pause, right? But I was very passionate about it when I talked to her because I don't like for people to not be accountable for what they've done, right? We're not perfect and we're not supposed to be. And we've all made mistakes and we're going to continue to make mistakes and we shouldn't be punished for forever. Now, there's some things that people have done and I'm like, yeah, you don't get any reprieve. Like, you don't, no. Sorry, no pass. But people need to be accountable. And I think that religion allows that accountability to be just forgiven or not present. I will never forget a coworker of mine who was a practicing Catholic, as she called it. She went to church every Sunday. That's what she did. I don't know if she was practicing Catholic. She did some very naughty things during the week. In fact, the naughty things, I asked her and I was like, so I'm a little confused. Like, you do a lot of stuff. No judgment, do your thing, but you're like in church every Sunday. She's like, that's why I gotta go. Gotta keep asking for forgiveness. I said, oh my gosh. And I said, you know what? That's the loophole in the Catholic Church. You can literally slaughter an entire family and on your deathbed, get your whatevers, and then you still get to go to heaven. I said, that's how I know it's all bullshit. That you cannot make me think that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
She was
not
like,
just in the Catholic Church either, right? Because we were part of the Southern Baptist Church, and so, it's the same thing. You make a deathbed confession.
yes.
Did you have a question? Because I have
just say, those not nice people, I think a lot of times are narcissistic, and they believe they have special rules, but anybody that inconveniences them,
of course,
does not need special treatment, does not need extra time.
Yes.
They're just demonic. They're just against us. They're persecuting us and those kind of things. It's really easy to do that. And it's really easy, I think, in schools to kind of get that way about kids. They're not trying. They don't care. And in essence, in truth, they really do care. They just can't. And
I know.
We were talking about before. And so to demonize them doesn't help.
I say all the time, children do not wake up in the morning and come to school to be disruptive on purpose. There is something going on. I had a student, I worked in oh, my glasses are fogging, sorry. I had a student, I worked in Ninth Ward, New Orleans for a little while, and she was just really angry. Oh my gosh, she was so angry. And then of course she's lashing out at everybody. And so she wasn't my student, but we're in the school and we're all in the community. And so one day I was like, come sit in my room. Come sit in my room. And I'm like, what the hell are you so damn pissed off about? Like, seriously, like you are so pissed off on a daily basis. I just need to know why. Like, I don't even care what it is. Just tell me what it is. When she told me what was going on at home, I said, okay, you have a right to be pissed. You have every right to be pissed. We're not doing those things to you. So we have to come up with a plan for you to be able to transition. And because I know when children are abused, it's hard to accept kind. So we have to figure out a plan because we got to work together because you got to come here. We got to be here. And like, you're just angry and disrupting for no reason, right? Like, and there's a reason, but I need to know why so I can figure out what we can do to help you. And we did. And she had every reason. If I had her mom, I'd be pissed the hell off too. Like, I understand why you're mad. I get it. I can't do anything about that situation, but I can do something about this situation, right? So, but that is, Carl, that takes time. Like my school, kids came, we combed hair, we brushed teeth, like we went to after school, we brought food to their house, like we were doing the work. And so, but that's what community is supposed to be about. That's what school and church is supposed to be. Like I said, I went with my grandma in the evenings, delivering food to the sick. Miss Mary had surgery. My grandma, oh my gosh, Carl, my grandma, she's so funny. She's like my favorite person in the whole wide world. My dad and my grandma. Oh, my other grandma. My other grandma was my Granny Seal. Oh my gosh, Carl, she was such a cusser. I don't think she ever went to church. I think if my Granny Seal went to church, the church probably would be like, what? Granny Seal was so fun. She enjoyed her life. She was a nice person, but she cussed. Oh my gosh. She was an old, big woman, and she cussed like a sailor.
I think we could have been best friends.
Yeah, Laura might have liked her very well.
Sure, I would have.
She was so much fun. She was so much fun. But my grandma was just, the elderly and all those things of hanging out with the folks in church. And I remember coming home from college and, picking her up and saying, I'll bring you to the grocery store. You don't have to take the bus. And there's always somebody from the church that she sees. And then she has to say, my granddaughter's here. She has the car, so she'll take you home. Okay, I'm taking home Miss Mary. But the kicker is, so Miss Mary, how do I get to your house? Well, we only know the bus route. Okay, so we're going the bus route. All right, let's go to bus route.
That's funny.
My grandma.
I got a question. I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
And it has to do more with the church, and I'm going to preface it by telling just a little story. So it is not a secret to our listeners that we have a grandson with several medical complexities. He's non-speaking, in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
His parents were going like a shopping trip to the local Walmart, and on their way out, somebody they were like on one side of the parking lot aisle, and this person literally crossed to get in front of them and said, "What's wrong with him, and can I pray?" And of course, my daughter, who I'm so thankful that our children deconstructed this whole religious nonsense while Carl was pastor, mind you. But how do we get away from looking at disabilities as wrong and something that needs to be prayed away? That, like, speaking of visceral responses, I am having a reaction to that because I want to punch people. I mean, literally want to punch people when they say that, and to think that, we can just say some sort of magic prayer.
What does she say?
And what our daughter said, "No, you may not," and his medical information is none of your business, and kept
Thank
walking.
you.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just want to say to people, what is wrong with what do you see that is wrong with him? Because he's, and is that what we're talking about when we're talking about ableism? Because he's not like, quote unquote, us. You know what I mean? And I'm using air quotes, people, because
It's the concept that he needs to be fixed.
Exactly.
He needs to be fixed.
And the
That's
church,
ableism.
though, I mean, and really, it's not just the disabled in our churches that need to be fixed.
Oh, yeah.
We all need to be fixed, right?
Yes.
Because like you were saying, we're born into sin according to the narrative, right? So we all need to be fixed. But I feel like there's in a way this spotlight on individuals with disabilities that need more fixing? Question mark?
And,
I don't know.
I think that is why you've heard me talk about religion in the book studies, because the discrimination goes back to religion. If we go way back, people with disabilities were discriminated against in the churches. Literally, they were used for horrible things. So this is the systematic underlying. And think of it: if everyone is following church, God, and religion as something good, and religion says, "Ooh, that's bad. It needs to be fixed. We need to pray it away." What is everybody going to think?
Yeah. So if I believe it's a brokenness, and I believe I can pray for it, like the story she just told, then I'm expecting miraculously for it to change. That's the only solution I can hope for. And if it doesn't, then God must not have wanted it. And so,
or I didn't say the right words,
or it's my fault,
Yeah.
and we'll dismiss it.
I know.
Dismiss it, and we don't want to think about it in a different classroom, whatever. And so, it's we want easy answers to things, and it's just like even basic communication in marriage and things like that. It takes time, like you mentioned before. It takes attention. It takes patience, which you said you didn't like that word so much.
No, it does take patience. It does take patience. I just don't like that to be the only, like, people will say, "Oh, you can do that because you're patient," and I'm not. I'm like, okay, it's not about, that's really not.
It's more about that you care.
Yes.
Not that you have,
Yes.
Well, and like you said, we have to make time for those things.
Yes.
We have to make time for those things.
But if we all build community, and if we all understand, no one has to take a lot of extra time because we're all pitching in.
Right.
It's like a Girl Scout troop. Not one person's holding all of the weight. We're all pitching in and contributing what we can do. It's really that simple. It's just getting.
In reality, you're going to spend the time anyhow.
Yeah. Yes.
On those kids or those parishioners or those friends or those neighbors or whatever, you're going to spend the time anyhow. It's whether or not you're going to be applying it for good.
Most people have something to contribute, and so including everyone in the community, and everybody has something they can do and lots of things they can't do. Everybody has something they can do. So whatever someone can do, that's their contribution. It's really that simple. And I will say Guatemala is probably better at doing that than Western culture. They are, and even in Mexico, when I was in Mexico, like autistic adults work with their parents in their parents' business. They give them something to do that they do well. There's no big deal about it, no job training, just, hey, look, he's really good at making sure the boxes are even. He can be the one that does the inventory. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. I mean, sometimes there's a little extra work, but you guys get the gist. You get the gist.
Yeah.
I will say a really savvy response to people when they say, so when people come up to someone that's disabled or a parent that has a disabled child, and they say, oh, do you want me to pray for them? You can say, no, what I need you to do is pray for people to be more accepting of differences.
Yeah.
Pray for people to be more accepting of differences. That's what we really need. Thank you. Bye.
So I'm writing stuff down, trying to figure out my question, but I really like what you said about that's not okay. I removed a longtime friend from Facebook the other day because they use the R word. And he said, just for using the wrong terminology? I said, yeah, because it's not acceptable.
No.
And you're 70 years old, you should know that by now. And if you don't, maybe this will help you go figure it out, and then we can talk. But, I accept the responsibility that most of that is men. In my experience, that men need to say to other men, that joke's not okay.
Yep.
That behavior is not okay. And they can call me a name or whatever, but they'll probably not respond right to it, but hopefully at least they think when you say that's not okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's really interesting how, males, and I'm overgeneralizing, but, men, guys tend to like have this little pack, right? Like, this pack. And I always used to say, guys get together. There's not a lot of drama. They just all kind of like, and they don't have any drama because women, we have drama, blah. They don't have drama because they don't make each other accountable. Women make each other accountable. Why did you not put that on your child's, those slippers on your child? Not always justified, but that's why there's drama. But the men men will sit in a room while the guy talks about cheating on his wife and no one says anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Yep. Yeah. So.
Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I'm so glad that I reached out to you, Stacy.
Too.
I feel like I'm probably going to be messaging you for understanding, because I feel like you have such a wealth of knowledge, and because you've done the work. It's not because but you've done the work. You've been the ally and the advocate, and so I really do appreciate all the work that you have done and will continue to do for especially individuals with autism and individuals with disabilities. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to know more about what you do, or to invest in your book that you are going to?
I know, right? I am pretty easy to find. If you Google Stacy Badon, all my social media comes up. But Facebook and Instagram, I'm pretty regularly easy to find. And I always tell people, if you message me there, sometimes it's tricky because, they don't, if it's not a friend, but I'm pretty easy to reach. But my website is really simple. You can even message me directly from my website and you can find me. So I think
your website is. You gave us that information. We'll put it in the show notes, but.
Yeah, it's Autism, the number 4 home. So it's Autism for Home. I started the business because I was recognizing that parents were getting a diagnosis, but no one was telling them what autism was. I was like, how are you going to help your child if you don't know what autism is? And so then I just started doing sort of parent coaching on the side. And then I was like, I think I could probably do this on a regular. And then now I'm here with a micro virtual school where I teach neurodivergent children virtually. And then I do parent coaching around the globe, and I get to do in-home and lots of good stuff. And my podcast with my co-host who's autistic. Yes.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because, I can imagine that when you get that diagnosis, it feels very isolating perhaps, and lonely. And like you said, they have questions and maybe they're not getting the answers. So I love that you are helping families to understand that diagnosis.
Because Google makes it scary and doctors make it really scary. Okay, so
go ahead.
I can tell it after we finish because I told Carl I was going to tell the story about my grandmother.
No, say it.
I have to tell the story, Carl, because we were talking before we started recording about,
You
you
did. This
know,
would be a great way to close us out.
there we go.
Tell us about it.
Perfect. So, my grandma, after Hurricane Katrina, she had to move in with my mother. So she had the room in the, where I grew up and her little space set up and her church, flooded and all her members were gone. So she's watching church on television. Well, my grandma always, for holidays or parties, would drink a glass of old granddad, right? Old granddad. So never could find her glass, but she drank old granddad. So one day I go to my mom's house and I said, okay, I'm gonna go talk to grandma. And you know how old people grab your arm because they don't want you to leave.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I go back there and I'm like, hey, grandma, how's it going? And she grabbed my arm and she said, you know how you in good with God? I said, oh, grandma, how do you know you in good with God? She said, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch this church on TV, but I'm going to have me a little taste of this old granddad because God didn't say you couldn't have a good time while you were here. I said, Grandma, you're right. Yep.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that is
Yeah.
amazing.
Favorite.
I know, right? That sounds like our kind of people. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Yep. She did.
Yeah,
So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for
Yeah.
joining us. This was an amazing conversation.
For the
It was.
listeners out there, we appreciate you tuning in. Hope you'll get in touch with Stacy. And I'd say just when my daughter made me take a test online and said, Dad, we know, but and I was left with that information, just like when you come home from school.
Mhm.
So I would encourage people out there to learn. Never too old to learn. And just like we're doing in our deconstruction, just like people are deconstructing their faith and learning new
Exactly.
things, learn about these things that are not necessarily that hard to understand. It's just something you've never been taught. So let's all learn together, learn to communicate, sit together, and be in community like we've been talking about. So
I love the concept of deconstructing the bad myths about autism. Our podcast is called Shifting the Narrative Around Everything
there
Autism.
you go. Absolutely.
I like that deconstruction.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone out there for tuning in. Get in touch with Stacy and be where you are, be who you are, and be at peace.
Thank you for joining us today on the Desert Sanctuary podcast.
Remember, all who wander in the desert are not lost.
We believe all of our stories are sacred.
We are always here if you need someone to hear your story.
Check out our blog on Pathos and also our YouTube channel.
And stay tuned for our Leaning Forward conference.
Remember, we love you.
And be at peace.